Welcome everybody to this Here for Business webinar on financial wellbeing in today's economy. This is the 7th webinar in the series aimed at supporting Greater Manchester businesses through these uncertain times. We'll provide details about how to access the previous webinars and what's next in the series after this session. I'm Tom. I work on helping SMEs in Greater Manchester get access to the skills they need to grow through the Skills for Growth programme, and I'll be your chair for today's session. Now, what we're going to be discussing this morning is financial wellbeing, the impacts that can have on a business and the steps you can take to support your employees. With the cost of living crisis, rising household bills, a recent survey conducted by CIPD have reported that 1 in 8 employees already lives in poverty, and that many more struggle to maintain a decent standard of living. Those numbers are just staggering and just show us why we need to have conversations like this to help support businesses and their employees during this time. The report also states that 1 in 4 employees says money affected their ability to do their job, and even those on the highest income aren't immune. So people with poor financial well-being are more likely to lose sleep, be less productive, have more days off work, and suffer from poor mental well-being. Now, to give their insights into this landscape and why it's important to support your staff during this time, I'm joined by some great guests today who will introduce themselves in just a minute. And I encourage you to get involved in the conversation. And after this panel, we'll open up a Q&A. So if you see the question bar on the right-hand side of your screen, please ask questions throughout, and we'll spend time at the end of this panel addressing these. There are no stupid questions, and if you're thinking it, the likelihood is that others are too. So time to introduce the panel. So first off, I'm going to start with Maria Manda, who is the Health and Wellbeing Specialist for the Skills for Growth programme. Maria, can you tell us a bit more about your role in the Skills for Growth programme and how you support businesses?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Tom. So I'm the Health and Wellbeing Advisor on the Skills for Growth programme, which is a programme to upskill of the workforce in Greater Manchester to boost the economy. So my role in the programme is going into businesses to help them with their wellbeing strategy, developing that framework with a holistic approach, and financial wellbeing is certainly a hot topic at the moment. So on top of that, I also do workshops as well to support businesses, and I predominantly work with SMEs across Greater Manchester. So it's making sure they've got a well and a thriving and an engaged workforce, and also retaining talent as well. Thank you.
Fab, thank you. Next, we've got Philip Dyer, who is the founder of Healthy Leaders. Philip, great to have you on the webinar. Can you tell us a bit more about Healthy Leaders and what you do?
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for attending. My name is Philip Dyer, and I specialise in organisational culture and wellbeing. Culture being the cornerstone of development. For the past 20 years, it's been a primary focus of mine to actually help people to develop what I would classify as their productivity and performance through better understanding of how the culture works. And that enables people to have the conversation. In the context of this morning's session, the focus is, from my perspective, about ensuring that people understand that saying that you've got an open door policy or having processes and procedures in place isn't the same as actually having an established, clear, accessible culture. So we've got to understand how they tick. So that's what I specialise in, and I'm looking forward to talking to everybody.
Great, thanks, Philip. Next, we've got Justina Best, who is the Regional Strategic Partnership Manager at Brewin Dolphin. Justina, good to see you. I'm not going to lie, it did take me a few goes at practicing your job title. Bit of a mouthful this morning.
Yes, I'm glad you said it. I'm glad you said it, and I don't have to.
Can you give us a bit of insight into, Brewin Dolphin and what you do within the organisation?
Yeah, sure, of course. Yeah, welcome to the webinar, everyone. So, Brewin Dolphin are, or RBC Brewin Dolphin, as we are now, are one of UK's leading wealth managers, which traces its origins back to 1762. And really, we support individuals, families, trustees, business owners, and employees in their financial wellbeing needs. by offering financial planning, investment management, and financial education services also. My role straddles across the north of the country, and I work together with our northern offices alongside our partners, such as the Growth Company here in Manchester, but also engage a lot with the business owner community in the regions in order to support them as best as we can with our services here at RBC Brewin. Thank you.
Fab. Thank you. And finally, we've got Claire Wood, who is the owner and director of Datesand. Claire, great to have you on the webinar. Can you let everyone know who Datesand are and what you do as well? I think you're on mute, Claire. There you go.
Apologies, that's a good start, isn't it? My name is Claire Wood, Director of Datesand. It's a small company. We have 30 employees. We've been trading since 1980, and we import and export consumables into the biomedical and healthcare sector. So we've worked with the Growth Hub, and so I can speak from experience in terms of what we've gained from working with you guys and what you've been able to bring to our business and help us with. So I'm hoping, I know everyone here today is on limited time, aren't they? So I know it's precious time, and hopefully I can throw in some practical things that businesses have managed to do given the financial crisis.
Fab. Thanks, Claire. And I'm going to get the conversation started straight away, and I'm going to dive into a question that I'm going to put to you, Maria, first. What is financial well-being, and what is the value of this to us?
Yeah, so financial well-being to an employee, it's a state of being where an employee can actually meet their current financial needs and also their future financial needs as well. It means that they can make decisions in life and enjoy life because they have the finances. It also enables them to participate in society as well. The value to a business, if you've got employees stressed and worrying about money at work, they're not going to be engaged in what they're doing. It's going to affect their performance at work. So it's really important that an employee has got that support in place, paying the real living wage. They've got other things in place, which I'm sure Claire will come on to what they've done later on in the webinar. And I think I'm going to bring in Justina as well at this point, who may want to add on to that as well.
Yeah, thanks, Maria. Yeah, absolutely. I think financial well-being is such a key strand, as you rightly say, of the overall well-being for any of us. And it is, as you say, a feeling of being financially fit and secure. And this really does have such a close relationship with the overall well-being of any individual. I think the key points from our side of things is to have control over day-to-day and month-to-month finances, to feel like you have capacity to absorb any shock. So, if you were, for example, to have to stop work, to have that confidence that you have got some form of comfort should that happen, and to be able to track and meet your financial goals, and ultimately have financial freedom to make choices and enjoy life. So, for example, have enough in your retirement pot and know that you have enough when you want to finish. I think it is quite neglected, this part of well-being, and the potential stress and worry about finances can lead to such a drop in productivity and engagement in the workplace. So offering support in the form of education for employees can really help to alleviate these problems and does contribute to a happier and healthier workforce.
Great, thanks, Justina. Philip, we're just going to bring you in there as well. What does financial well-being mean to you when you're in conversations with business leaders and managers?
Well, I suppose that the word that's been used quite a few times by Maria and Justina is support. But it's very difficult to support somebody if you don't actually know what the current status is. Often in an environment where you feel that I mentioned before about having an open door policy, when I hear a senior manager or senior leadership team say that we've got an open door policy, you can come in and talk to us about anything. If the culture isn't actually engaged, then the likelihood that somebody's actually coming along and explaining that they've got a problem with their finances is pretty slim. So it doesn't matter if you've actually got a care policy, or like I said before, or you've got some sort of communication structure that you think is formal. If the culture isn't engaging, people won't communicate. So it's really important to understand what the culture is like. Within the context of leadership, we tend to find that people have conscious and unconscious behaviours that can be negative or positive in terms of engaging with your team. Approachability. So you might think you're extremely approachable, but your colleagues, people that you need to support, don't necessarily share that view. So I do think it's important to actually start out by doing a survey, an anonymous survey, to actually understand what the landscape is like so that you can engage with your team. And I've never done a survey yet where the senior leadership team say exactly the same as the people that I've surveyed, ever. It's always different. So it's about helping people to establish the right sort of platform and environment to engage and have the conversation in the first place.
Thanks, Ben. And Claire, I'm just going to bring you in there as well. What does financial well-being and what value do you put on it at Datesand, and the types of things that you put in place to support your employees as well? Claire, you're on mute. So we're just getting a bit of feedback. So every time we're not speaking, we're kind of going on to mute. So we will get there in the end. Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't realise that was the case. Yeah, no, it's really important to us that we address financial well-being amongst the team, just as much as the physical health, mental health. It's just one of the three pillars, and it's really critical, isn't it, that you don't bury your heads, that you look at that and look at what you can do with your team to help support them. It's not just about them getting the job done in the workplace. It's about supporting the whole person, and everyone's been affected by the financial crisis. No one's immune to it. So interesting what you were saying earlier there about having an open door policy. For us, we want the managers to walk amongst the team, me included, talk to people, ask them how they're doing, ask them face to face, how are you coping? You don't have to wait for surveys to talk to your people and understand what challenges they're being faced. And if you ignore this sort of pillar, you're likely to have increased absences, increased stress, and it'll have a massive impact on your performance of your business. So it's not to be ignored, and it's something that people need to be looking at quickly. Many companies haven't got a financial policy, haven't looked at what they can do for the people, and if you ignore it, it'll have a negative impact on the performance of your business. We talk to our people about the three freedoms: freedom of mind, money, and time. And these are quite interesting openers, really, to get people talking about what keeps them awake at night, what time freedom means to them, what money freedom means to them. And I think, in the UK, we're not great at talking about money, are we? We've got this, the Brits don't talk about certain things, and money's one of them. And so that's a bit of a culture change for us to try and change that in the workplace. It's okay to talk about, if you're struggling, or, you're having a bad time, or you need some support. And so it's trying to break down those barriers and open up those conversation starters with people, really, and find out, as Philip said, everyone's individual. Some people are impacted massively. Some people right now might not be that massively impacted upon, but they might be if this goes on for many years. So yeah, it's talking to your people and having the right leaders in place, trained to be able to talk to their people as well.
Claire, it's a great point that you've just made. the latest stat by MAPS say that 52% of adults feel uncomfortable talking about money. So it's really important that managers and leaders are really getting those conversations, going in the workplace.
Yeah.
Great, thanks. And Philip, I'm just going to bring you in there as well. And you're obviously speaking to a lot of businesses on a daily basis. What are some of the current issues that employees are facing during this financial crisis?
Well, pre-financial crisis, I would say that this is an ongoing problem. It will be compounded, which is communications. Communication is probably one of the most problematic areas in most businesses, whether you employ 2 people or 2,000 people. And everybody thinks that they're doing it right, and most people seem to be doing it wrong. I just cite a case study that I was thinking about before we started this panel. There's a company that I worked with, 16 employees, and surveyed. Half of them were happy and half of them were very unhappy. But it wasn't departmental; it was just across all areas of the business. So from the cleaner to somebody that was quite senior in the team, you'd have half of them unhappy and half really happy. After a bit of drilling into it, what I discovered was that half of them were extremely well informed and the other half weren't. Where I'm leading it here is that the managing director, the owner of the company who ran the business, was a smoker. And the other half of the company smoked. They went out when he had a smoke, and they were really well informed because he was chatting about things and he kept them in the loop about everything. And the other half weren't. So the absence of a structure to ensure that people that didn't just have the MD's ear, it was something that everybody knew, made such a difference. So communications is imperative. And as Claire points out, everybody's different. And you really won't know what's going on inside someone's head unless you engage with them on a regular basis. So I think from management and leadership perspective, it's important to be engaging with your team, talking to them regularly. And some people find that quite uncomfortable. Claire mentioned training. If you don't do any training and preparation for people, it's not innate. It's a skill that's got to be developed. So you have to engage with your team and take a genuine and sincere interest in them.
Thanks, Philip. Justina, I'm just going to bring you in there as well. So obviously you're working with a lot of businesses, within your role. And what are some of the issues that you're finding with employees at the moment with the businesses you're working with?
Yeah, I mean, I think, inflation has such a big part to play at the moment, hasn't it? We've all been hearing about it. It's reached its highest levels in the last 40 years. So employees are facing the prospect of hugely soaring energy and food bills, and often mortgage and rent costs as well to top. So for a lot of people, this will translate into a pay cut, unfortunately. So employers are now more than ever rallying to support their employees in any way they can. According to data compiled by the Office of National Statistics from April to May this year, more than 3/4 of adults were worried about the increase in monthly outgoings. Staggeringly, this increased to 93% from last August to September time. So, as Claire rightly pointed out, it's absolutely on everybody's mind and kind of, relevant of your earnings, actually, because it is all relevant. It's having an impact on everybody. So we all need to focus on it and manage our finances accordingly. And education is a good way to start.
And I think, sorry, Philip, I think as a business owner, as a small business owner, you don't have a big bucket of cash to throw at these issues necessarily. A lot of it, as the example you've given, education, doesn't cost you a lot to do that, to get your leaders informed, to talk to your people, to find out what they need. And you can put things in place that don't cost, we're all stretched, aren't we, small business owners? It doesn't have to be a monetary thing. That is an element of it. but having the right culture, as Philip said, an open culture where people feel they can talk to you, that's really, really important. Some people don't have anyone to talk to. They go home, they live on their own. There's a real mix of employees out there, and it's really valued that they do have managers that will listen to them and help to signpost support. That in itself is a really important thing.
Can I just add to that as well, that I think it's understanding the issues of employees. So I work with lots of SMEs in Manchester, and a lot of them, they can't, afford to be giving one-off payments and big pay rises, and it's understanding what the needs are. So in Manchester, we actually have 620,000 people now living below the poverty line, and I heard an alarming stat last week that 42% of children in Greater Manchester are in poverty as well. So it's understanding what those barriers are to those people who are in work and living in poverty. It's not only about paying the real living wage, it's understanding, can they afford the transport to work? Have they got good transport links? Have they got care and responsibilities? Are they having to take 2 jobs? Are they working whilst they're ill? If we've got a problem with presenteeism. So it's really understanding what the issues are of your workforce. There's also a poverty map that you can have a look at as well by the Greater Manchester Poverty in Action, the GMPA, and that actually highlights which area. So if you've got a business in manufacturing business in Rochdale, that might be an area that's has got an issue with poverty. So it's also looking at the wider picture as well.
I was going to say, just following on from what Claire was saying there, that the training and development of the management team is important, but there's a risk that if you don't feel that you have the tools, that you hunker down and double down on the way you were previously behaving. So if you assume at one end of the spectrum, Claire is very committed to engaging with the team, and that's a natural process on a normal working day. But generally speaking, organisations tend not to be like that. Whether they're employing 10, 20 or 100 employees, there's an absence of that type of behaviour. And under pressure, people tend to hunker down and resist. So there's a higher probability that you'll have more tension in the workplace. So it's really important that you reach out. If you're a manager or you're a leader of an organisation, you reach out and develop those tools. The Growth Hub has great resources available. It's important to engage with these to actually improve your chances of not only surviving but thriving in these challenging times.
Thanks, Philip. Next question, I'm going to come to Maria for this one. And how do you support mental health and well-being of your employees during the financial crisis?
Yeah, sure. Well, it's looking at the overall picture, but when we look at the impact of the cost of living crisis, it's 5 times more likely to impact on lower productivity. It's going to have an impact on anxiety, mental health if people are sat at the desk, worrying that they can't pay their bills, or they're getting into debt as well. So we've spoken quite a lot today about the leaders and the managers, and for me, they're absolutely key in getting those conversations going in the workplace. So we're creating those open and inclusive conversations, talking about money, understanding what the issues are with your employees as well. And then it's putting things into place. First of all, mental health. Are you signposting to support? Have you got mental health first aiders in place? Some organisations have an employee assistance programme. So it's looking at what support you've got and then signposting to external support, such as MAPS. They have the money helper with budgeting tools and learning how to manage your finances. It's also putting education and awareness in place, so workshops. Can you put apps in place such as BIPIT, Plum, Emma, the Money Hub? There's tons of stuff out there. And then looking at what you can put into place as an organisation. If you have you got the capacity to maybe pay a one-off fee, not one-off fee, sorry, a one-off kind of a bonus payment, and then looking at other things as well. So could you put interest-free loans in place for emergencies that may pop up if somebody's boiler's broken down, or the car has. So it's looking at things like that really as well. But just being mindful that whatever you do put in place to support your employees, it's also that will be externally out there in the marketplace, as your brand as well. And I've been watching with interest at things that people have put into place. Tesco have just recently said that they're going to be putting support in place, and it wasn't very well received. So it's just kind of looking at the overall picture as well. They were putting into place salary advances, and that was seen as maybe getting people into more debt. So it's just looking at the overall picture and making sure you've got support in place for your employees. It might even be that you bring in a financial advisor as well to learn some of those soft skills.
Thanks, Maria. Claire, I'm going to bring you in. You might have to unmute yourself, getting a bit of feedback on the line. However, what have you put in place to have these types of conversations to support your employees with their mental health and well-being?
Yeah, I think Maria's covered a lot of the points there. Until you research it and put some effort in and some time, it doesn't take an hour. There's so much available on the web, so much free resources as well. You just need to allocate some time and get cracking and see what's out there. For us, I think it starts with a survey around health and well-being, and specifically people's financial position. Are they struggling to cope on a day-to-day basis? Are they worried? Are they struggling to pay for the basics? Find out what the people are individually struggling with first, and that's your starting point. Then you're fully informed on your workforce and where you need to focus your efforts. For us, the sort of things I think are key things around that is a financial advisor. There's plenty of advisors out there that can come in do a 30-minute session with each of your employees. They might get some business out of it, and they're also helping to educate your employees and signpost them, saving, loans, debts, whatever it is, to give them some support there. 30 minutes each, put that out there as an option. The other thing you could do is look to buy back holidays. Obviously, every employee needs their rest days, and we appreciate that's really important. So say you offer 25 days, maybe you offer 5 to buy 5 holidays back, making sure that they've still got enough time to rest. That's a key thing, for someone just being able to flex that and get that extra money coming in. The Manchester Credit Union is a fantastic charity. You can offer savings and loans. We're not keen on payday loans. We wouldn't want anyone to go, doorstep lenders, things like that. We want people to have an option, and that surprised a lot of people. A lot of people, Manchester-based, didn't know it existed, didn't know what they had to offer, didn't realise that you didn't need to have any credit, good credit. So for some of your workforce who have struggled in the past, that might just be giving them that little lifeline for them to start putting some money away each month, even if it was £5, £10, just to start that change in behaviour and start to build up a bit of a reserve. From the research we've done, it said that individuals might have had £250 savings for a rainy day for one of those life events coming in, and now that's dropped to 100. And so it's really worrying that you think people are trying to survive with life hitting them left, right and centre, and they're on a knife edge already, and they were after COVID, before COVID, some people. So this is just really tipping some really vulnerable people over the edge. So that example, credit union, is one for everyone to explore. It's an absolute no-brainer for us and our people. And I believe they'll come into your organisation. I know they'll be stretched like anyone, but I believe they'll come in and talk to your people, and that's the best way of getting the messages across, answering the questions that employees have. So that's a brilliant one for us as well. The other one was around people that are on the prepaid meters, so they're sort of tied into the meters. I know now no one can really negotiate good deals, can they? But those people really can't. So maybe you could offer an interest-free loan to help households get rid of those prepaid meters and being able to get, competitive rates on their energy bills. Maria mentioned these sort of within month access to your money. I know Wage Stream is out there as one. We are looking at that, and I do appreciate that perhaps, gambling again is an issue for some individuals, and some people might be tempted to go down that route at these times, drastic measures. We might see an increase in people looking at gambling as an option. I've got this amount of money, maybe I could get this. I'm gonna take that risk, and we don't want people to do that. So there is a bit of a caveat around that, these wage stream lenders. But I do believe NHS trusts are on there. Some of the police force are in there. Co-op Next, I believe, are on there. So it's a tricky one, isn't it? Because you don't want to not offer it, because some people might find it a challenge to not draw down more than they need. But I think it's 50% of their within month salary they can get within the month. So, if you have one of those issues that your boiler breaks or you need some extra cash for something, it just gives people that flexibility instead of, people eating beans out the tin at the end of the month. They can access a little bit of money if they need to. So it's one we're certainly looking at. Yeah.
Can I just add to that as well? It's looking at your rewards and benefits package and making sure it's actually relevant as well. So if your workforce are on the real living wage and they can't really afford luxuries, and you've got a discount scheme in place for high street vouchers, well, that might not be relevant to them because they can't afford to go in M&S Next and all the high streets anyway. So it's really understanding the needs of your employees. Packages suitable to put in place. And Claire, I just want to bring you back in as well, just to talk about the real living wage, because I know that you're a real living wage employer as well.
Yeah, we've always paid above the minimum wage, so we've been proud of that. And then when I came across this again through the Growth Hub, brought this to my attention, and I thought, right, well, we need to get this accreditation. We're already doing it. But just recently, we've had some employees that came on as temporary workers, manual workers, and we've recruited them full time, but they would have dropped below the real living wage. And they've just brought through an increase to £10.90, which I think it's in the springtime, isn't it? May that hits. So rather than us waiting for that, it's really critical. That's the basic of everything, isn't it? The basis, making sure people are paid a wage that they can live on, not just survive day to day. So we had 4 people there that would have dropped below that. So because we have signed up to that pledge, that commitment, we've brought those people up, and we've done it now because there's no point in waiting till May. These people have got Christmas to get through. They're obviously already will be struggling. And so that for me is really important. And if employees can afford to do one thing, I think I would say that living wage is the most important thing. It's just a given that you don't want your employees to worry and stress, do you, and just to survive day to day. They're not going to be happy in work. They're not going to be productive. They're not going to be able to perform, and they're stressed, aren't they? So we don't want that.
Great, thanks, Claire. I'm just going to put a question to you, Philip. Why is the role of the leader so important in this sort of situation?
It's a good question, Tom. It's important because we need more people like Claire. That's really the top and bottom of it. People that are actually interested in the workforce. If you look at it from a practical perspective, this is an opportunity to engage with your team and retain your team, because bad times don't last forever. We'll come out of this. Don't know how long it will be. Hopefully, it will be a short affair. And when we come out of it, people will remember how you've behaved. And all cultures are a function of the leadership. So if there's an issue within an organisation, any sense of dysfunctionality or a toxic environment, that's driven by the management, the leadership of that organisation. It's not driven bottom up. It's always driven top down. And so, as I go back to what I said before, it's imperative that you develop the tools and skills to actually engage with your team. Before this financial issue occurred, before COVID, forever it seems to be the case that, generally speaking, people in the leadership management role when I speak to them, will say they're lonely. So an owner manager within an SME often will say they're lonely because they've nobody to actually engage with themselves. And so it's too easy to become siloed and feel that you've got the world on your shoulders. And as sad as it seems, that there's so many people actually turn to alcohol as part of the way to solve the working day. So they'll go home and the phrase which I hear said all too often is, I'll just have 2 or 3 drinks just to take the edge off. And that's the leader coping with their stress in the wrong way, but coping with their stress. That stress is brought into the workplace and it just proliferates. It's like a ripple in a pond. And so often stressful environments that people work within, it's a function of the senior management. So it's repairable, but in the first instance, you've got to realize that there's something that needs to be fixed. And that requires honesty and openness. And there's quite a few platforms where owner managers can actually work with other owner managers so they can share their woes and talk and realize that they're not on their own. And that's an important part. Claire mentioned that you could spend an hour on the internet and find all sorts of different stuff, which is it's a fair observation. But when you feel that you're actually at the top, an hour feels like a lifetime, and you tend not to do it. You've got too much to deal with on a day-to-day basis. It's just pulling you away from that stressful environment is really important. And again, I'd say reach out to the Growth Hub, speak to people, and engage. If you're on this presentation this morning, you're reaching out, you're thinking about it. Take the next step and gain more. Because there are people out there that can help you.
Philip, I know we've had this conversation about the role of the leader, but it's not just about the technical skills of a leader now. A leader has to have a different set of skills. They've got to have that emotional intelligence. They've got to be comfortable in having conversations with employees, particularly if they're struggling, with their mental health. They've got to lead with empathy. So I think in this post-COVID world now, the role of the leader has changed in their skill set and what they need to bring to the table as well.
I agree totally. It's when I ask somebody in a leadership role what it is that they do, often it's quite autocratic. They feel that it's about telling people to get stuff done. And when I say that actually your role is to inspire and motivate and to help people to be the best that they can be, lots of people consider it to be too fluffy and light. Mm. So they think that the HR, a word I detest, so human resources, it is about making sure that people get stuff done. And it isn't. It's about dealing with people and helping people to be the best that they can be in their role. So you're motivating them. The last thing that a lot of people are is motivational. If they're stressed, they've got their house on the line with the bank, and they're coming to work and they feel like that they've got pressure, they become autocratic, and it becomes a transactional environment rather than an interactional environment. But it's uncomfortable. But once you make the first few steps and you cross the Rubicon, you go across that divide, it just gets better and better. And I'm happy to say that Claire isn't unique. There are other people that do actually behave this way, but not enough. There needs to be more people that understand that culture is the key to success and productivity and performance.
Yeah, from our perspective, leaders are absolutely critical, the right leaders in place. So it goes right back to your recruitment and the qualities and values that you're recruiting against, getting the right people in, the right talent, the right approach, the right attitude. It's not, like Maria said, it's not just that person can do the job. They are technically 100%. If they haven't got that emotional intelligence, like Maria said, if they're not empathetic people, they're not emotionally intelligent, they're not resilient, they don't nurture people, then you're putting the wrong people into the roles from the start. So recruitment's really important, and it's not easy recruiting people. Is it the right people? We're supposed to have a war on talent at the moment. So it's hard to get people, but that's why you need a financial strategy in place. You need your health and wellbeing strategies in, because they're the things that employees should be asking about. If you're going for interviews, what have you got in place to support your people? That's what I'd be asking. And that will tell you everything you need to know about that company and the culture. So, it starts at recruitment for us, leaders that can build trust with their employees. They can spot the signs of someone that's working with them that isn't 100% what's going on there. If they trust you, they'll open up to you and tell you, and that will help you support them and get them where they need to be.
That's the magic word there, though, Claire, was trust.
Yeah, it is trust.
Building trust. When you have people joining your organisation, if they've had a bad experience somewhere else, they bring that fear with them, and it takes time for that to dissipate and realise that actually I can trust these people. You mentioned values and the importance of values. I'd probably, it might be oversimplifying it, I'd split it 50-50. If 100% of companies have a value set, 50% don't live by it, and 50% do. You just have a list of words, nice words on a wall that don't mean anything. And the objective is to actually live by your values. Your values matter. It's all about the culture. I can't remember that there's some business guru, his name always slips my mind, but he said culture eats strategy for breakfast. You know, it's true. It's all about the culture. If you want to get stuff done, you need a good culture. That's the top and bottom of it.
I also feel as well that organisations need to put people at the heart of the business. You have to have a people-centric organisation. If you want to be successful as a business, your people are your business, so they've got to be right at the heart of it. And that's something I can say about Claire's business, because I've worked with Claire. As business owners, they're a great example. They truly care about their employees, and they've got an engaged, high-performing workforce. As soon as you step on site into Claire's organisation, you can feel that.
That's nice of you to say. When we're talking to our people and hearing what they've experienced before, one employee told me the other day he's a health and wellbeing champion in our business, but he works in the warehouse as well, so he feeds into what we can be doing, feeding back in from that perspective. And he sat there and I said, how do you think we're doing with this? What's your input? And he said, well, where I've worked before, nobody actually asked me how I was at any point. Nobody actually said, how are you? And I just find it really upsetting and depressing to think that there are organisations out there that think it's okay not to treat people with just a basic level of respect.
Yeah, but that it's that HR thing. It needs to be banned. If you say human resources, the resources, plant machinery, lights, technical licenses, etc. The people aren't resources. They get shuffled around like you own them, and you don't. There's an exchange taking place, which is important. You're paying them, they're giving you the time, and that word that you use, respect, seems to get lost in the mix for some reason. People are treated like chattels. Inappropriate.
I think some of the best leaders I've worked with are ones who show vulnerability, are actually, really open and transparent, and aren't afraid of showing, a weaker side to them from time to time.
Being human.
Because guess what? Yeah, that's all of us, isn't it? So, and I just want to pick up on your point, Claire, about the financial well-being strategy, that, in times when it's so difficult to attract and retain talent, having that in place for employees and actually, demonstrating that you care and you want to support them in any way that you can, really, really shows the culture of the business. And yeah, I mean, businesses spend such a lot of money, don't they, on recruitment, training, and then to lose people because the culture isn't a good fit, and there was a better offer elsewhere, is very, very costly. So having the right strategies in place is key.
Absolutely. I like the phrase, and it stuck with me. I can't remember where it came from now, but talent goes to where standards are high.
Yeah,
I wrote that down, and it's absolutely key. So put your resource into your recruitment process. Make sure you're matched well with the person that's coming in, that they will live and breathe your values, because it is inherently in them. And our values were written by our people. That's how you get away from just having words on a wall. Mm-hmm. We went to the people and said, right, what are our rules of engagement here? How do we want to operate? What are our standards? And so that's what we did. And the other point to note is, I know a lot of people talk about customer experience. Customers are king, and they are absolutely in our business. However, before that, it's about the employee experience. Are we asking our employees, what's your experience of working with us? How do we score on this, communicating with you? Do you know where you fit in? Do you feel like you're adding value? Do you get enough feedback? Do you feel nurtured? Do you get a say? Do you get to shape your role and have impact? And are you listened to when you come up with ideas? All of these things. If you're getting a 10 out of 10 or a 9 out of 10 on that, then you know you're doing the right thing. Keep on doing what you're doing. But I think the experience of your people is really important, and that's going to impact on your external service. If your people are demotivated, you don't interact with them, the culture's poor, your service will be poor, and your customers will vote with the feet. So those two things are absolutely locked in. If you get the people element right, support your people properly, and treat them well, they'll perform well, and they'll work hard for us, but we work hard for them as business owners as well. There's a lot of flexing when people, life hits them and they have things that come along, then we're absolutely there for them and we'll support them because they're loyal and they work hard for us. So it's a win-win for employee and employer.
You've got far more flexibility when you engage in such a way. I always think the four key pillars for me are culture, customers, cash flow, profit. And culture precedes everything. So it's always people before process. And it's just a winning formula. Like I said, it just affects every element of the business.
Thank you very much, everyone. So what we're going to do now is just going to have one last question, and then we've got quite a few questions that have come up in the chat, which I'd like to get through. So before we go on to the questions in the chat, I'm going to ask each of you what your key takeaway would be to the people on the presentation this morning. What's one tip that you would give them to go back and put into the workplace straight away? Justina, I'm going to start with you. What would be your one key takeaway from today?
I think it's to have a financial plan and support your employees to do the same. I think absolutely key. I think, as we've covered this morning, just having the peace of mind that you have a goal, a financial goal that you're moving towards, and you can track it and make sure that you're doing all the things that you need to be doing in order to get there is absolutely key to feeling like you're financially fit and secure. So to put something in place for your employees to also benefit from that, like education, is I think a great thing to do in the current times.
Great, thank you. Maria, come to you next.
Yeah, for me, it's understanding what the issues are and then asking employees how they want to be supported. So it's not just assuming, but really drilling deep down into what those issues are, and how as an organisation you can put a strategy in place to support your employees.
Thank you. Philip, come to you next, please.
Survey the cultural landscape, find out where you are. It's a bit, I use a bit of a story. Just say, if you put a blindfold on and you got dropped off somewhere, the first thing you do is trying to find out where you are at that moment in time. And before you set off on a journey, just check where you are, survey exactly what the culture is like now, and then start doing something about it.
Great stuff. Finally, Claire.
We're members of the Greater Manchester Good Employment Charter. We're members now, and we've worked hard to get that sort of accreditation. And they run Explore Days where you can go into other companies and see where, you can look at best practices and things like that. That's been useful for us. We're a small business. We're not just looking internally, we're looking externally and seeing where other companies, where we can raise our standards. So that's important. If you can get access into other employers, see where you're set. But the living wage for me, the real living wage is a basic. Yeah, you need to try and sign up for that and do that, and real living hours as well. So it's not just giving the right payment per hour, but it's also giving people enough hours so they can also have a real living and earn what they need to earn to live and not just survive. So yeah, those, I've given you more than one, sorry. I've got a list.
It's no problem. I'm sure we'll come on to some of those in these questions that we've had through anyway. So the first question that I'm going to come to, and please just jump in, whoever wants to answer it. How would you suggest starting the conversation? How would you phrase this? I would like to include it as my standard in monthly one-to-ones. Now, I'm guessing this is to do with having that financial well-being chat with an employee. How would you start that? Who wants to kick that off?
I'll kick that off, Tom. One of the things that I teach in my mental health workshop that I do for managers is to literally, in all conversations, start off with how are you doing? Because that opens up the general conversation as to, is anything going on at work that they may be struggling with, performance-wise? And then is there anything going on at home that could be impacting on performance? And it's having those honest and open conversations, from day one. So it's not having those conversations when there's a problem. You should be having those open conversations all the time with your employees. So always start off your one-to-one meetings with how are you, and really build that trust with your employees.
Can I add to that? It might, that it's important, I would say, to actually change the mix. If you see somebody once a month, I would recommend that you start seeing them once a fortnight. Shorten the meeting if you don't feel that you've got the time to invest. But the frequency gives somebody an opportunity. If something crops up, you've got to wait a long time before they get a chance to speak to you again, if you're not fully engaged. So I would increase the frequency of contact personally.
I wanted to say also that obviously, we're wealth managers and appreciate that, not everybody is going to be our client. So we've partnered up with a business called Octopus Money Coach, who actually offer free one-to-one coaching sessions initially for staff. So that could be a good way to roll out certainly an initial conversation, because what we find with financial well-being is you don't know what you don't know. You have to have the conversation which relates to your own personal circumstances to understand where the gaps are and what can be done better. So that could be a really good way of engaging employees.
Yeah, we do something similar in our one-to-ones. So the quarterly one-to-ones every 3 months. It's more of a formal sit down. They look at how the person's performing, but also one of the questions in there is on a scale of 1 to 10, and you give it to them before they come into the meeting. Where are you at home, work, and you? So if you ask them how they are and they give you a number, it doesn't really tell you very much, because it might not be the workplace that's the challenge. Work might be spot on, but it might be home life. There might be stuff going on. So it gives you a bit of a help into that. So if they score themselves a 3 at home, work's an 8, and they're a 4, then you can say, well, okay, why is that? And if you've got all of your signposting stuff behind you, you can say, well, look, can I help you with that? Is there anything we can do to support you? And maybe just by the employee being able to open up on something that's going on at home will make them feel better. And I told my boss, this is what's going on. The world hasn't ended. They actually managed it quite well and made me feel better about it. What a relief. I'm not stressed. I'm not trying to, there's all sorts going on at homes, isn't there? There's bereavements and divorces and money challenges, family problems. Everybody has stuff going on. No one's immune. Leaders are not immune either. So, homework you. That's a simple way to get people to open up. And then make sure you do something about it. If they open up, make sure you follow it up and do something about it, then the trust goes up. You're in the right cycle.
Okay, got another question. Would you change your approach based on demographic of your team? 90% of my team are under 25 with student loans. We pay far more than the living wage already. Has anybody got any thoughts on that one?
I think it's important. Yeah, again, we've not talked about that, but every company should understand what the demographic mix is, because their needs are different. Like this, the person that's asked that question. So they're all under 20 was the point, was it?
90% of the team are under 25 with student loans.
Right. Yeah, definitely. So you can tailor everything to that demographic. Then you've got one key demographic. And obviously they're a bit more vulnerable, aren't they? No one can get on the property ladder. The rents have gone up. Are people living alone? Have they got partners? Have they got one income coming in? It's a real struggle for that demographic, isn't it? So you can tailor your resources specifically for that. That's a bit more simple in a way. Definitely tailor your signposting towards your demographic of your people.
Anybody got any other thoughts on that one?
I think it's a really great point, because we have got 5 generations now in the workplace, and each generation does have different needs. So it is understanding what the needs are of the generations. So at the other end of the scale, your older generations, they've got care responsibilities. They may have like children that's, older children that are still living at home. So it's understand they want access to, as Dina's mentioned before, they're thinking about pension planning, family life, and things like that. So I think it is understanding the needs of each generation of your employees and what those issues are.
Great, thanks, Maria. We've got another one here. What's the best way to build a great employee value proposition? Who wants to kick us off on that one?
So, well, I'm going to go back to being a bore about my survey. First of all, understand the landscape. That's your starting point, and then if you follow the route that Claire took, establish a clear set of values for the organisation. But you've got to engage your team to do that, really, rather than looking at a wonderful book or a magazine that tells you what the best value set should be. There will be a prevailing culture, and within that will be a clear set of values. You've just not defined them, and it's a great process, because you learn so much about yourself and your team and your organisation. It's quite liberating in many respects.
What I'm finding with SMEs now in the marketplace, when people are going for a job, it's not just about the salary and the job itself. They're looking at the overall picture for the employee value proposition. So they want to know what your purpose is as an organisation. As Philip's just said, your values, how you're going to invest in me, how you're going to value me, how you're going to look after my well-being, what things have you got in place, an employee assistance programme, a healthcare cash programme. And then they're looking at your ESG strategy as well. So what you're doing for the environment, how are you reducing carbon footprint? So there's a big picture feel here now, when people are joining an organisation, and also stakeholders as well.
Great, thank you. We're just going to finish with this one. What creative things have you seen SMEs do to help with obviously financial well-being of their staff, I'm assuming? For example, food supply for breakfast, perhaps looking at low budget or cost neutral ideas.
I missed the question there.
Yeah, it was breaking up a bit there, Tom.
So what creative things have SMEs done to help with this situation? So whether it's a food supply, breakfast, snacks, I think this person is looking at low budget or cost neutral ideas that they can put into their business straight away.
Yeah, I get asked this all the time, because I work with SMEs that don't probably have like a HR team or a HR manager. So it is looking at those cost-effective things, but again, it's understanding what's valuable valuable to your employers. It could be that, you know, I want an early finish on a Friday because I want to spend that family time with my family at the weekend. Could you do things like give, like, you know, one-off payments of vouchers, especially coming up to Christmas? You know, a £50 Amazon voucher could, you know, get Christmas presents for the children. So it's understanding, it's looking at your budget and looking at what your employees' needs are, and then just finding those simple ways. It could even be that you just give people extra time off at Christmas. So yeah, just looking at what the needs are and then trying to put those cost-effective measures into place. Claire, have you got anything to add to that, what you may have done? Oh, Claire, you're on mute.
Sorry, it's a tough one, that, because I can imagine, you know, that's the first thing people say, what can I do? It won't cost me very much, but have the biggest impact. And there isn't just one thing that you can do, is there? But if you've got the right culture in place, your people can talk to you, they trust you, they can open up. That is a massive value, I think. And if you have, you know, your mental health first aiders in place, that they're also trained in signposting financial elements of support as well. You've got your health and wellbeing champions in place. You know, it's those sort of things that I think really do add value and help. And it doesn't cost a lot. It's about education. We offer free fruit. It's there all the time. We asked in the survey before, how much fruit did you have before? Has that increased your amount of free fruit? Yes, of course it has. Everybody's having the 3 pieces a day, and you know, that's something you can do, isn't it? Making sure people have got some healthy snacks in the working day, making sure they have breaks when they need to have breaks, and that you've got a culture of, you know, where someone just needs 10 minutes to, you know, clear their head or get outside for some. Yeah, of course you can. Of course you can. It swings and roundabouts, isn't it? We've talked about, Maria, wellbeing walks, cost you nothing, get your team out, get them outside. We've done them from where our premises are. 2 hours, we're back in the office again, but you've connected with your colleagues, you've built relationships, all those things. 2 hours of the business pauses, we go out, do things like that.
The only thing that I'd say tread carefully with is providing food and various other things at that time. The fruit is one thing, but breakfast, for instance, it might be okay for the moment, but it can turn into an entitlement. And it's hard to come back from something once you've started it. So you've got to really be considered about what you intend giving. If you think it's for a short term, and let's say a year from now things are significantly better, very difficult to pull that back. So you've got to be careful from a practical perspective.
Just whipping back to the last question about the student people under 25. I didn't mention Step Change, which is a really good charity that's been going 25 years, really established. Free debt advice, range of debt tools, help people work out budgets, income, manage the debts, national debt line, Money Helper, Maria's mentioned, pensions, and then Money and Pensions Service, clearing debts, reducing spending, making the most of their income. There's so much out there. I'd put an hour aside and get researching. And obviously we're happy to share anything we've learned after this if people want access to any of the resources we use.
Fabulous. Well, we have gone 5 minutes over. I thought that was always going to happen, really, with this type of conversation. Ben, would you be able to just share the slides, please, so we can just bring up the next session? So we'll just give you some details about what the next session in here for business is. I think that's probably a good place to end it there. Bringing it up now. Apologies for the delay. So after this session, you'll get a copy of the webinar, so you'll get a recording. What you'll also get is any sort of the details, that the resources and those type of things and links that we will send through as well to help you on this journey as well. The Skills for Growth program, this is where Maria works with businesses to do workshops and put in place a wellbeing strategy that is available through the Skills for Growth program. The next session under the Here for Business is next Tuesday at 9 a.m. and that is market opportunities. If you would like to book onto that place, we'll send the details for this session, and it's just a case of registering for that webinar. I'd like to really put a big thank you out to the panel today. Justina, Philip, Maria and Claire, thank you very much for all your thoughts this morning. It's been really insightful. I know I've learned a lot, and certainly it's really valuable, and you can see that by the amount of questions that we've had through, and we were only able to pick a few of them. So thank you very much for this morning, and it just shows what a really important topic this is at the moment. But thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
I've enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.